Season team. I got some thoughts on that a little bit later on if we have time on the college hoops front and always the NFL, Major League Baseball playoffs, anything you want to talk about, be it 757 flavor or not, give us a shout at 757-687-9494. That's area code 757-687-9494. You can interact with us on the Twitter page at 757 Sports Talk. We are scheduled at about 11:05 a.m. Eastern to be talking with Chuck Culpepper, he of the Washington Post, longtime writer for them, and was certainly a local presence because he used to write for the Suffolk Sun. And I've got some Suffolk connections to what's writing for the Suffolk News Herald. And I think he's in Utah. He's got a layover. So we're going to try to connect with him if the flights don't interfere and we can get to him and have some fun with that. But let's go back to the phones. Again, 757-687-9494. We talked to Mark in Chesapeake, who I think wants to talk about those Western Branch Bruins. Good morning, Mark.
Hey, good morning, Matt, and thanks for taking my call. And
sure.
Boy, what a small world here with Western Branch connections. Brian Neese grew up with my brother. Didn't realize he was coaching football.
That's right.
Can't wait till next Friday. And how about that race in 6A? The top 5 teams within 3 points of each other.
Yeah, it's going to be a really fascinating, and real quick on that Brian Neese thing. We had Brian Neese on last summer, I think it was. He's a loyal listener, follower of our work and the radio show and all that stuff. And he mentioned what a big mentor Lou Johnston was for him in getting into coaching. He was an assistant for Chris DeWitt at Kellum for many years before taking over for Coach DeWitt upon his retirement. And so good to see Kellum making some noise out there. But as far as Western Branch goes, yeah, you got Franklin County, who they had that interesting, wild playoff first-round matchup last year. Thomas Dale is still unbeaten at 8-0. They're no stranger to the States, having knocked off Oscar Smith during Philip Sims's senior year. When he was the quarterback for the Tigers back in 2009. Manchester, with a freshman quarterback, is now like 7-1, and Landon Abernathy, their only blemish to Highland Springs. And the Bruins, I think you might know this, Mark, the last time they beat them, 49-45, 2003. That was Ryan Pond, correct?
Yes, that's right. And I'll piggyback. My 10-year reunion was 2004, and Greg Boone and Oscar Smith came to Western Branch, and that was the first time that I remember Oscar Smith here beating the Bruins. So can't wait to next Friday.
Yeah, you know, they've come close a couple of times. Greg Gibson had that epic game in 2015. I called it the Fog Bowl. It was like that Eagles playoff game against the Bears when you had the fog and they didn't go for the field goal. Kashawn Artis, who's a linebacker at Virginia Tech, made the stop on a 4th and 2. They had a game a couple years, might have been a year before that or a year after that, where they had the lead in the third quarter, 17-7. Sean Mitchell completes his 3rd and long, and that triggered a Tigers comeback. And as we've seen with Oscar Smith this year, you can be up on them like Kings Fork and Indian River, but you got to keep them down because while their offense has not been as consistently explosive as in years past, they can awake at a given moment. Special teams can strike. They got a kid in the secondary with Damon Etheridge with 8 interceptions, but key's going to be to me if Western Branch's passing game can be efficient. Doesn't have to be explosive, put up a ton of yards and touchdowns, but Taquan Trotman make good decisions because he's got the weapons, as you know, with Shamik Blizzard at running back, Paul Billups, the UNC commit at wide receiver, C.J. Frazier opposite him. They have the weapons to make this a tight ball game to the finish, but you got to execute those third downs and not turn the football over to beat Oscar Smith because they just have that winning mindset and culture, and they never seem to disappoint or let down in these big spots.
Yes, and I know that, Kings Fork, it was a tight game, but, Kings Fork got us, and, it's, it would be great if this coming Friday is just another great weather night like last Friday, but Coach Cook has certainly done a great job here with, this being his 3rd year and 2nd full year with coming out of the pandemic and leading the program.
Yeah, I like the direction they're going, and certainly he's got another one of the kids on the team. We know about Desmond Cook, who was the linebacker, now playing for the Tribe of William and Mary. Devin Cook on the team, making a contribution. He's a good receiver, defensive back. Should be a fun game, and regardless of what happens, these two could certainly run into each other again, regional semifinals or finals in 6A. Not sure how it's all going to play out these last 2 weeks with the implications. Manchester and Thomas Dale still with some significant games in their districts. Manchester and the Dominion up there in Richmond, and Thomas Dale in the Central District, to see how the seedings shake out. But certainly the winner has a great shot to get the 1 seed. Definitely in Oscar Smith's case, because they are sitting at the top at the moment, and we could see these two meet up again come November. So thank you for the call, Mark, and I might see you out there next Friday night.
Sounds good, and thanks for taking my call. And just coming off the air, the last point that I want to make out is, fans, there's still 2 weeks left in the regular season. So how does the schedule, is it up to each individual school coach and athletic director? Because the Bruins, they start at the end of August, play 10 straight weeks, and even though it's our senior night next week, the regular season, our bye week is that week 10, the first weekend in November, so definitely be playoff implications these next 2 weeks.
Yep, great question. I'll take that up there or let you get that answer in a moment here, Mark. Thank you for the call. It's a good point because to his note about that, Western Branch does have a bye week, and they're not the only team with that the schedule's kind of shook out that way. It's sometimes on rotation basis, and if you don't have an out-of-district opponent or you have one in a certain spot, it just happens to fall this way. It's not so much planned always this way, but take the Beach, for example. So they have 11 schools that you have 5 games each week, 10 teams in action. This year, the team that opened up with the bye was Tallwood. The team that finished with the bye was Bayside. So Bayside will have a bye week before the playoffs, just like Western Branch does. And the Peninsula District has kind of had it odd the last couple of years where they end up with a bye for a couple of schools the last week of the year. Denby, who's not going to be going to the postseason, unfortunately for them. In addition to them, Menchville's got a bye that last week. So does Warwick out of Newport News. Now, the nice thing is the Peninsula has built it into its schedule. They open up that first week of September, last week of August. No buys. They have 10 schools, even number of schools. So that last week is always saved there for an out-of-district game, which Phoebus has with Oscar Smith, or a makeup game, should there be weather, which we always seem to have weather issues, be it, hurricanes, flooding, or whatever it might be, rain,